Hey guys, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel again. Me and Sharon again are here with another podcast, and thank you so much, guys, for such an awesome response in the previous podcast. Sharon, we were not expecting, right?
No, we honestly decided to have a conversation and just record it, but it's crazy how many people have responded. So happy to be back.
Yeah, uh, guys, Sharon is doing his PGY1 at Cleveland Clinic. I am doing my PGY1 at the St. Vincent Clinic. This is just a effort from our side to give back to the community that we have decided to make podcasts during the match season about different aspects of the eras and the overall match. So last time we made a video on signaling. This time we decided to make a video on geographic preference or geographical preferences. We will be sharing our thoughts on geographical preferences and then combining both the viewpoints, like from my side and from Sharon's side. We can make a like 5 points a summary or conclusion, so that it gives you another perspective to think about geographical preferences. It's very subjective, it's very personal, but we just want to share it, right? So Sharon, please go ahead and tell your thoughts about geographical preferences, and how did you think last year when you were filling the geographic preferences, right?
So I think to all the viewers out there, welcome again. Before we begin this episode, if you haven't watched episode one, I think Saurabh would highly encourage you to do that because we're going to pick up from where we left off there, right?
Right.
And for the returning viewers, welcome again. Happy to see you. All right. So, geographical preferences. The way I look at, I think the best way to kind of explain geographical preferences is how they're similar to signals and how they're different from signals. Right? Maybe that's a good starting point. And I think both signals and geographical preferences are subtle hints you give to the program saying that, hey, uh, I'd like to come to your program or I'd like to come to your place to train, right? Now, when you tell somebody that when you gold signal a program, you're telling the program, hey, I want to come to your program. You're my one of my top three. That's a very precise and a very
Uh,
strong signal that you're sending. Right, Saurabh? It's
right,
it's
very, very
very
strong, like
precise.
telling someone you are among my top three. They cannot ignore you.
Exactly, right. Now here's where geographical preferences are different. When you say that, okay, you are like the Northeast is my geographical preference, that's 7 states, right? That's at least, I imagine, 100 programs. And
Right.
even then, you're not telling them it's not like you're saying this is the only seven, these are the only 7 states I'm applying to. This is one of my top three geographical preferences, right? So that is just setting the stage of how both of them are similar tools, but how they're also like quite different.
Different.
That's how I think
Right.
about it.
Right.
What do you think, sort of?
Yeah, totally agree with that. And when I was thinking last year about geographical preferences, so I just made a simple uh, opinion in my mind that the signals should align with the geographical preferences. So there should not be a
Makes sense.
disparity. Let's say I'm signaling some program in, let's say, Midwest, and I haven't picked my geographical preference there. So that kind of dilutes my signal, right? Uh, so that is my understanding. And now, Sharon, as we are in residency, so we see things from a different perspective, right? Uh, Although the things have been great for me, but I would say it was accidental. But now I find that, oh, this, the destiny. So
Yeah.
another important thing to think about when you are putting the geographical preferences is like where you want to stay for next 3 years. And this is not something people think. Well, I want to make it very clear, guys, first month of residency is hard. Second month is not easy, right? So although you understand the system and you understand how the work flows, but from emotional standpoint, from other aspects, residency is hard. You are staying alone, you are doing everything by your own. So it makes a difference where you are staying and what is in your vicinity that can help you kind of counter those things. For example, I stay 40 minutes from a big city. So every time I feel like I need a outing, or I need to do something, or I need a break, I want to see another world, I will go. And this has happened because I gave the geographical preference to this area and eventually I matched. But let's say, I'm not saying like you should not choose some good program over a not that better program. But let's say you are in a program where the biggest city from that program is like 3 hours away. Would you be able to go? No, as easy as someone who is just 30 to 40 minutes. So this is one perspective that I want to share from my end. And then Sharon, I know you must have your perspective, right?
For sure. So I think there are two things I'd like to share. I think you made a very important point, which is more than geographical preferences, it is important to think about where the program is situated. And I mean, again, as international grads, you don't have the luxury of saying, "Oh, look, I will go to a program where I want to go to." Right? As we
Yeah,
discussed in the previous episode, primary goal is to match. Secondary goal
match.
is to match where I want to match.
Right.
Right? So before like that is a given that you have to like matching is more important than like saying, oh, I won't go there. That I think both of us and I think almost everybody agrees. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to locations and selecting locations, yes, it is important. There's another thing that people sort of forget about, which is weather. Like if you've never seen snow in your life and you end up somewhere
Yeah.
where it snows all the time or it's super cold, it is going to be hard for you to adjust. Right?
Yeah.
Not to say that you don't go to that program or not to say that, but it is something you want to consider also when you're
Yeah.
creating your decision tree or your
Right.
rank order list.
Right, right.
Right?
Sometimes we just lose the track of it, and we just tend to forget that these things play a role. For example, now seasonal depression is real, dysthymia is real.
Sure.
Now, as the winter approaches, you start feeling, sad, or I would say not that active as compared to summers. But if there are things to do in the place where you match eventually, or if there are things to do, places to go to, then definitely it helps to cope up with those things, right?
For sure, for sure. And I think so. I think maybe we're distracting ourselves a bit where we're talking about like how location is important to the match as opposed to like how to use geographical preferences as a tool. So I'm gonna kind of bring that conversation
Okay,
back.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that you understand, first of all, geographical preferences, like the point of geographical preferences is you're telling the program, hey, if I'm gonna be around in this area, I'm probably going to rank. If you are a program in this area, I'm probably gonna rank you higher. You've already told your 7 signals that you want to go there. That's done. That's a given. That's over.
Yeah.
But there are hundreds of programs. Right. And those programs also want graduates to come in and train. Right. Now, how do I think about signals? Let's assume you're a local. Let's say you were somebody born and brought up in the East Coast. You did your med school there, pre-med there, you have a life there, right? What would make you want to leave the East Coast and go to the West Coast or go to the Midwest? A program that offers you something that the East Coast can't. Simple. Right? So it makes sense for the locals here to signal geographically where they're going because they can tell the programs, hey, I want to stay here. I have a
Mhm,
life
mhm.
here. Now, as an international grad, you're coming in most likely from half a world away. Right.
Right.
So you saying that, oh, I want to go to New York or I want to go to Chicago, that doesn't mean anything. By default, you don't have a geographical preference. If you select the, oh, I don't have any geographical preference, you're not telling the program anything new. You're coming in from half the world away. You're not expected to have a geographical preference. right? But as you said, things like location, things like having a maybe a cousin or like a family friend or
Right.
somebody in the same city, the difference it can make in the not only the transition but the difficult times, and your family at home will know that if something happens to you, there is somebody that they trust in the city who is going to be able to take care of you on a very
Hmm.
subjective and on a very personal level. That is a very important motivating factor for me to go to a place, right? If
Exactly.
like most of us would, I would imagine most people would know somebody in on the East Coast, right? Because it's a popular place for not just doctors, but also other professionals. And a, a lot of immigrants stay on the East Coast. It's just, it's a thing. So it's
Yeah.
very natural to assume that if you go there, you're going to have somebody from some communities, even not directly related, maybe indirectly related, who is there. And that is actually a very important factor that if you are not taking into consideration, you might want to actually start doing so,
Exactly.
right?
And once you choose that geographical preference, you have to kind of give a small description like why this area, why this
Yes,
geographic preference. So I remember last year I did the same. I just wrote that I have a friend here, so in case I need him, he will always be there. So and that makes sense, of course.
correct. Right. And
Yeah.
I mean, it can be something is like, okay, I did one of my rotations in Chicago. I loved the city. I absolutely loved the city, right? And and I have a lot of family friends who stay in Chicago, right? So when I was writing that description, I wrote both of those things. I said, look, I
Hmm.
love the city and I'm not here to be a tourist, right? I'm here to do a job, but I also need a life outside of my residency. And
Yeah.
to
For
support
me,
that
for
life,
example, yeah,
right? So
for
to support that life, there is a city, but then there's also my own connections and my own family friends who are going to be there, which makes Chicago as a city a very attractive proposition for me.
exactly.
And
And then
even
that's why
if and
you
you
send the geographical preference to Midwest,
right,
right?
right, and so like your if your program alone can be very attractive, and I would love to come there, but for those programs that know that they are not the top 10% of the country, right? These things matter because now you're
Add on.
telling the program, I would take you also.
Add
What do you
on.
think?
Yeah, let's say I'm the program director and I see your application. You have sent me a signal, and then you have chose that state as a geographic in your geographical preferences, and you have written that okay, my family lives here. My so then I will be more than happy that I want this person instead of a person who doesn't have any ties or any connections. They are sitting there for more than 10 years, 20 years. They know how hard is residency and how the dynamics are and how a support system can help a resident, you know, uh, uh,
Yeah.
just mentally,
Survive.
right,
Survive. Yeah.
survive. Exactly, this is the appropriate word. I was thinking about what is the appropriate word. So
Yeah.
so for them it matters that their residents should be happy, because only then they would be able to work well. I think Sharon, your
Yeah. My
Wi-Fi
bad. I'm
was,
sorry.
yeah, no worries.
My bad. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, so I was just saying that as a program director, if there is an application where the prospective resident has sent a signal, and then again he or she says that I'm choosing this geographical area because my family lives here. So it makes program director very comfortable to choose that candidate, because the program director knows that this candidate has a support system here,
Correct.
and he or she will
Correct.
be able to have a good uh, peace, I would say, mental peace or mental health throughout the residency. So that
Correct.
makes this a very important point that both me and you, we agree that we have to send the geographical preference, and it should align with the signal. It would be a add-on thing. It will even strengthen our signal and also give us a
Yes.
chance that from other places they can also look at it, right?
Correct. Now, maybe looking at it from, I completely agree with what you're saying. 100%.
Yeah,
You are basically, you not only are you saying, I want to come to your program, I also love the place that your program is situated in, and I'd love to come there,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Let me give you one more perspective. I just thought about this. Uh,
Yeah.
Saurav, again, you are Dr. Program Director Saurav Siddharth, right?
Mhm.
As we played this game last time, we'll play this game again. Your Program Director Saurav Siddharth, I am asking you, what is the point, or like what is your main goal from the residency match? You are getting a lot of applicants and you have some
Yeah.
positions to fill, right? What is in what is your goal of the match process?
Yeah, I would say I will really look for the people who fit in nicely into that
Right,
system, into my
right,
program. It's not about 260s, 270s. It's about people who fit in, who are able to work well for the next
right,
3 years,
correct.
and work happily.
Right. And the way you do that is you not only do you have to select candidates that fit your profile, you also have to select candidates who want to come there.
Right, exactly.
Because if people are miserable and they don't want to come there, if you select residents who are miserable and don't
No,
want to work, what's gonna happen?
no. Yeah. It would be a nightmare,
That's smart.
exactly. It would be a worst case
Exactly.
scenario. Yeah.
So you want people who one fit your program profile. That's great. We talked about this at length last time, but
No,
you also
by that I meant that the people who want to fit in that
right.
place, not
So
like
people who
the
want to come, people who
yeah,
want to come, who want to work for you, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
right. So as a program director, how do you assess that? Everybody writes in their personal statement that they want to come. Everybody writes
Yeah,
all of these things, right? But a
yeah.
signal and a geographical preference is a subtle way of
Objective
telling,
measures.
yes,
Objective
you
measures.
are
Yeah.
precisely
I
you are
won't say it
telling the
is
program.
subtle. I would say it is like a very solid measure, right?
The signal for sure, geographical preferences, I would say,
It's
are
an
like because
add-on.
it's like you said,
It's an
it's an
add-on.
add-on thing. It's like
It's
the
an
cherry on
add-on.
the cake, right? Yeah, it's
You're
like the
right,
cherry
right.
on the
It's an
cake.
add-on. It just gives little
Yeah,
more of a confidence to the program director that okay, these things are aligning. It's okay. Yeah,
it's more like okay, all of these things are aligning as opposed
things
to
are
oh,
aligning. Right?
just the program. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I
So
feel I look at it. Yeah,
yeah, and Sharon, I'm thinking like we will not be stretching this video, but I just have another perspective that I want to share with you.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
once we are doing residency, we are also thinking about the fellowship and things like that, right? So it again becomes important to think like that. Okay, I'm sending my geographical preference to this area. How many big uh, programs, or I would say good programs, that have the fellowship that I want to do in that area? For example, let's say you choose a state. uh, let's say we choose a random state in West Coast. So you are sending your signal to that particular area. You have to see in the vicinity which are the programs. Do they even take IMGs? Do they have the fellowship that I want to do? So this is another perspective that should be there while sending the geographical preferences.
For sure, I think that is something to consider. However, like I think most again, like as we remember when we talked about how this
We
advice is
didn't
more
know about
applicable to, yeah, and
yeah.
remember how we talked about this advice is
We
like more
didn't know about
applicable
that.
to the middle 80% of the
Yeah,
people
exactly.
applying, right?
Yeah.
So for the middle
But yeah,
80%,
this is
I
just
think,
an add-on point. Like
yeah,
I know we didn't think like that, and no
yeah.
one thinks like that. That's why
So
I
it is
said
something,
it's a
yes.
perspective.
It is something, yeah, for sure. I mean, if you do have like again, this all comes down to you're trying to you know this all comes down to your secondary goal, which is matching where you
Mhm.
want to match,
Yeah,
and you can
exactly.
only get there if you know okay you have or rather you know that you have a good chance of matching. You can start thinking about these things. But
Exactly. Yeah.
I would definitely consider these things when thinking about where to send your geographical preferences. And you have to think about it as a board game also. I feel like 95% of people are going to send a geographical preference to the East Coast, right? Because
Of course, because that makes
it's
sense.
obvious,
IMG friendly programs,
right?
and you cover like 100
Right.
programs in one geographical preference.
So,
So,
so if I'm a program director, I can go about it two ways. I can either say I'm not going to look at anybody who has not sent me a geographical preference because I have so
well,
many
yes,
people who are sending it to me. Or I'm going to almost assume that the geographical preference is completely useless because 95% of people applying are sending it to me.
right.
So who does what with that information is very different, right? And
Well, true, true. But
I don't want to confuse
I
the
won't take a
audience.
chance.
Yeah,
I would send it. I sent
I
it
know.
last year, right? So I
No,
sent
no,
it.
of course, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
No, of course. I'm just saying, like, I don't want to confuse the
yeah.
audience, but it's important to kind of have these things in your head also. Things can happen. Putting it out.
Well, yeah, and but uh, again, we are sharing our thoughts, we are sharing our
Yeah,
perspective, and uh, we both sent geographical preferences
for
last year,
sure.
and
For sure.
we
For sure.
definitely recommend that, right?
100%. I think like again, I look at it as a board game and I just thought it was far more practical to bank on even if it is just one third of the country, then like going like doubling down on that rather than saying, "Oh, I don't have a geographical preference.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, I'll match."
Mhm.
I feel like that. I don't know. I felt playing it the other way was better. And yeah,
Same with me. So, yeah, well, Sharon, I guess this was, I don't think there was too much to talk about geographical preferences. We just shared our perspectives, shared our ideas. So, well, I think this is uh, pretty much the information that someone would be expecting for
what
geographical preferences.
for sure,
So,
for
in
sure.
our next episodes, we will be talking about a couple of topics like when to send letters of interest and did they work for us. I will be sharing my honest opinion, and then you can also share your opinion, and then subsequently interview prep and as the season goes. So let's see.
Yeah,
And this is getting exciting. I'm
for
looking
sure.
forward to do more of these
It's like
podcasts.
it's kind of like reliving the adrenaline of the match without the stress of the match.
Yeah, exactly. So every week we look forward to recording these sessions. So, well, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Take care, Sharon.
I'll
Bye
see you
bye.
guys again
Again, nice to
for
meet
sure.
you. Bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.